the MPC One as well. Today, I'm here to let you know that the MPC One can work as a controller too. Just gonna be an update to show you the progress that I've been making with this, and I'm excited about that progress. I'll show you the progress today. I'll show you what I'm doing. I'll let you guys in a little bit earlier on the process on how I make these things work. All that being said, make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you like content like this, share the video with other people. Let's get the word out about these various controllers. And I've also released some scripts for the MPC Studio 2, the MPC Studio Black. They're on my website, xproducerb.com. Go there and get those scripts. Let me know what you think. If you got some problems with them, let me know in the comments. I'll do the best I can to help you guys out as timely as I can. Without further ado, let's get into it. This is the MPC One. Of course, many of you guys, MPC users, you probably have a device like this. Maybe you got the Live or Live 2 or the X or the X Special Edition. This is the only standalone MPC that I have because basically, in my opinion, it works just as good as the other ones, and I don't see a need for me personally to upgrade. I do like the workflow of the MPC One. I got instruments loaded up. I like that. I like the sampling ability. It's really dope piece of hardware, if you ask me. But I've gotten a lot of requests lately to see if this guy can work, because I started releasing scripts for the MPC Studio 2 and then the MPC Studio Black. And so everybody's asking, B, what about the One? Can the MPC One, will this work with the MPC One? And my answer initially was, I don't know. I never even thought about using it as a controller until I found out that this works in controller mode. They have a whole mode on here that works with Ableton Live. So what you do is you go in here, you click on this little control icon right here, and it's a specialized mode that Ableton and Akai collaborated on to make this a uniquely control Ableton Live. Everything from the pads to the screen. I mean, you get session view, you got a mixer view here, you got device view, and so I'm an Ableton user, so I tried it out. I got the MIDI driver installed on here. I got the network plugged in, and man, I loaded it up with Ableton Live, and boom, the thing just came alive. I could see all my clips, I could see all of my scenes, I could see, all the mixer, I could adjust lots of parameters, even the devices were there. And I thought to myself, well, if all of that is happening over MIDI, surely there's a protocol out there to be used that I can kind of take advantage of. And sure enough, that is the case. So today I'm going to give you a little bit of behind the scenes on how I kind of go about doing this. Okay. I've been making music since I was 11 years old, been producing. I've been playing since I was 8, been producing since I was 11, way back in the 96, 97, talking about Cakewalk 6, and on top of that, music also got me introduced to computers. So I was programming stuff at a young age too. Music was the main career, software development and computer was a backup. The software development stuff won out. That's another story I'll tell y'all another day, but suffice it to say that I've got experience with developing. So when I find out that there were scripts out here, I can just kind of go into those scripts, reverse engineer the scripts, reverse engineer the device to see what communication is going forth, and we can take advantage of it. That's what I did for this device, and I'll show you how I did that right now. So let me load up here my code editor. We'll go right into what I found, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Show you what we're dealing with here. This is going to be a little bit of a techie video, so if you don't have the patience for that, I'm sorry. This is just the type of video this is. All right, so I don't know if y'all can see it. Here we go. On GitHub, there are these live MIDI remote scripts, and this comes installed with every version of Ableton right here. These are the Python files for every controller that works with Ableton out of the box, including some of the Ableton stuff that they made. All right. So when Ableton started releasing their push, they really beefed up these scripts. And these are the Python files that the code that makes all of those controllers work. And as you can see, it's really a lot of just pure folders with all the code located right here in it, including some of the Ableton stuff. And I encourage you to go look at this. This is how I found out about Ableton's V3. I knew they were coming out with a push 3 before other people because they have a version 3 of their framework. So Ableton has their own code in here. Different vendors have their own code in here. So if you want to take a look at how some of these controllers work with Ableton, this is publicly available. You can go right on GitHub, just type in Ableton MIDI remote scripts, GitHub, and you can clone this repository and search it yourself. So what I did now is that I cloned this repository and I went into the Akai Force, because the Akai Force works with Ableton out of the box. But what they didn't tell you is that they made the same functionality to be present on the Akai Force, the MPC One, the MPC Lite, and the MPC X. All of them can control Ableton out of the box natively. I'm like, well, there it is right there. So what I did is I just went into this, and I went into the Akai Force directory, and here is all the code that makes the Akai Force work. And a lot of this may look like gibberish to you, but I've done a lot of study in reverse engineering. I kind of know what's happening here. I know how the pieces of the puzzle are put together. All of this is really based on Ableton's framework that they use for their own push. So if you know that, you can really get around a lot of other things. All right, here's a screen so you can see it. So I just went into the elements, which is all the physical controls on the device, whether on the screen or here. And I went searching through to find out what values make everything tick. And you can see some of the things are defined here. Some of the MIDI values are all defined here. And once I looked at and saw how Ableton was communicating, I found out that I too could make this device communicate from whatever software that I wanted to. All you really had to do is find out how Ableton was using it, document it, and then implement that same protocol for your own controller software or your own controller script. I'll show you the documentation that I provided. So that's the first thing that I do. When I'm sit down and I'm programming a controller, I reverse engineer device. I want to know every single piece of data that it sends and it receives. Once I know that, I can document it, and then I can make the buttons and the software do what I want it to do within the limitations of the protocol. So what I did, I'll take you to my repository here, and this is publicly available. Here it is. This is the MPC One MIDI Protocol. Okay, and all of my discoveries about the MPC One MIDI Protocol I put right in here. This is for control mode, not controller mode, which puts this device into a mode to be able to control the MPC software. This is the control mode that controls Ableton Live. You can usurp that, send over an activation ping on a regular interval, and then here are all the communications that the device sends. Everything from the buttons to the pads to the cue links to the touch user interface. Even the touch interface on this device actually sends MIDI data back and forth, which is huge. That means we can use a touchscreen however we want to use a touchscreen, which is dope. That means I have, 100 more controls on the touchscreen to be able to implement. So pretty dope stuff. Touch user interface, transport, session controls, pad matrix, all the mixer controls, we can control those. All the device controls, the parameter slide values buttons, even the text display feedback. I can send text and update it in real time, all over MIDI, which means that if it's done over MIDI, all I need to do is to be able to figure out how it's done over MIDI, and I can implement a control script to make this useful for any other software that communicates over MIDI, because all MIDI is data in, data out. Okay, regardless if it's a button, if it's a slider, if it's a fader, if it's a pad, if it's either color or text, they're just sending data in and they're sending data out. And it's very small amounts of data. So if you know what data is being sent in and you know what data is being sent out, you can leverage that data to make the controller do what you want it to do and perform how you want it to perform. That's essentially the nuts and bolts of how I got this to work. So after I did that, I went through and documented it all. You can use this, by the way, you techie guys out there that want to make your own scripts for the MPC One. Here's all the documentation. The only caveat is that you have to be in controller mode. You cannot, this does not work in any other mode outside of controller mode. So what I mean by that is you got to be in this mode right there. That's the only mode that it'll work in. Now, cool thing is you can go back to the regular main mode and all of your original stuff will populate. All right. So you can kind of go back and forth between what you want to your local sessions versus your controller stuff for Ableton Live. But once you're in this controller mode, by default, it will show you waiting for an activation from Ableton Live. All that is a sysx message. Sysx stands for system exclusive. It's baked into the MIDI protocol. And basically what Ableton is doing, it's sending this ping message right here highlighted on a regular interval, let's say every second. And the device will respond with this message. So anytime you send either a ping message or a control message, it will unlock and you can use any of these controls as you see fit. The rest of it are just note on and off messages and note CC, control change messages, which I've got all of that documented here. The only difference is the text. Those are also system exclusive messages and they're sent in an ASCII encoded manner, which basically means this. ASCII is another encoding to give text numerical values. So is a capital A actually an A? No, it's actually got a numerical value like 60 or something behind it that the computer sees. You see an A, but the computer sees the number 60. Okay, and ASCII, ASCII, is one of those type of encodings that you can transfer text over any communication means, such as system exclusive. So you can send text to and from this device just by using that encoding and the sysx message. And they actually have it defined right here in the Akai Force MIDI remote script. If you go down here to sysx, boom, here's the message header, invite, here's the product IDs, here is the text message type. And you can go down here, where is it, to the physical display, and you can see how they build that message using the physical display and using the length. And so using that, I was able pretty much, I'm sorry, you didn't see any of that. Using that, I was able to pretty much decode how the device was sending messages back and forth. Pretty cool stuff. All right. So along with that, I got the whole device figured out. I know how the buttons work. I know how all the cue links work. I know how the pads work. I even know how all the screen and all these settings work. From there, I started making it work with FL Studio as a proof of concept. And this is where I got so far. Notice I'm controlling the sequence, that's the step sequencer. I'm showing the cells on the screen and it's kind of updating in real time. Let me turn on the tempo, the metronome, excuse me. So you can see the screen updating, and I can even change the color of every one of those cells. I can change the text that are in every one of those cells. I can change the text that is in the scenes over here. I can change even the track numbers or names and cells that are up there, which you don't see right now because I haven't implemented that feature yet. So that's just a taste of what's to come. And this is really just a proof of concept to let me know. Now I've already programmed some of the buttons, like the transport it's already there. Play, plays. You can see the LED lights up when I press play on here. You can see that lights up. Of course, if I hold down, if I press record will work. Now it's in record mode. It'll record things. I've still got to implement the pads and the pad colors. The only caveat to this particular approach is that not all the buttons work. For example, this row of buttons right here, none of this is used in the control mode. All right. This button right here, that actually takes you back into the browse on the MPC One. Takes you out of control mode. You have to go back. The mix works, the track mix works, and the next sequence work. It kind of toggles between the device. Program edit doesn't work. Samples. All these buttons take you to various menus inside of the MPC One, whereas they only have certain buttons that work with. That's kind of a caveat to this whole deal, is that you don't get all of these buttons to be able to use it to program inside of whatever software you want to. But it does open up the possibility for us to use the buttons, the pads, the knobs, the jog wheel, and the touch user interface. Because every time I touch, I'll show you how I figure this out. Every time I touch one of these cells, it actually sends a MIDI note. I'll show you this. This is a program called Pocket MIDI, and it's a MIDI monitor. And it's how I can verify what data is being sent back and forth. So let me turn the filter off I mean, let me filter out the sysx messages. You can see those pings going back and coming back in. I told you earlier. Let me filter out system exclusive, clear out the data so you can see what I'm talking about. So every time that I press a cell, it sends note on and note off. Whatever cell that I press, it sends data. Now you can actually hear it because I haven't programmed these scenes. Okay, because it's sending MIDI data into the software to be used and to be interpreted to do whatever the software defines, whatever your code defines. And so it's like that for the whole screen. Even if I press quantize here, it's sending note data. Delete, it's sending note data. Insert scene, it's sending note data. All this stuff is sending data that can be then used. And so right now you're not hearing the notes on the sequencer, or in this case would be the session view, because I've already programmed those notes inside of FL Studio. So my thought process is this: I wanted to go inside FL Studio, and I wanted to program each one of these to be a channel, and you could see the step sequence live. So you could touch your beats in without even having to use a mouse. You could touch your beats in, and then the mixer view would of course show you the mixer that is over the that is on FL Studio, and the device view would show you the parameters of whatever plugin or channel that you have loaded up, and it would show up with just plugins and parameters there. That's my initial thought for how to program this, along with using the buttons and the pads like I did with the MPC Studio and MPC Studio Black. I could use the pads in the same manner, and the transport's not going to change. The jog wheel's a little bit different, but it's not going to change. And in this case, I do have a Q link here, and I can control 16 different parameters with that too. So we really have a lot of possibility here with using this device in a way that's going to be, that I think is going to be pretty cool. So that's really all I wanted to show you today, just to give you a little bit of a teaser as to what I'm working on, to give you a little bit of hint on how I go about doing this and why it takes so long, you know, because again, I don't have any documentation. The way I figured this out is I had to go back into this guy. I had to go through all of this code here, you know, to figure out what in the world is going on and test it out in this piece of software here to make sure that it was all working, you know, the way that I thought it was going to work, and then take all of that and then document it in a repository here that I can reference later on when I actually want to decide how I want to implement this controller. So all of that, it takes a long time. It is definitely not easy work, and it's not work for the faint at heart. It's very error prone, but at the end of the day, it's also very rewarding if you can get it right. You can make this device do what you want to do with it. This is already a device that I love to just make music on. And if you're a guy like me and you migrate between standalone production and a DAW-based workflow, it could help you, because now you could have this device center on your desk. And when you want to use standalone, you're in standalone. You're making beats in standalone. But let's say you want to hop over to FL Studio. You don't have to push this thing to the side to go ahead and use FL Studio. It could control FL Studio too. Or you want to load up Ableton Live. You don't have to push this to the side. It could control Ableton Live too. Or let's say you want to go to Studio One or Bitwig or Cubase or Logic. If we know how the device works, we can make it work in our workflow. And that's really what I'm all about. I'm not trying to usurp any of the thing that the manufacturers originally intended for it to do. I'm just trying to really expand its usability in my setup and ultimately in your setup, and it can benefit everybody in the process. So let me know what you think about this type of work. Let me know if you got some ideas, you know, put it in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. I'm excited about what's happening here. Be on the lookout for scripts coming for this. Scripts coming for the Ableton Push. I got that guy sitting right here. I also got the launch key. I want to make the launch key work for Studio One. I think that'd be dope. And some of y'all have asked me about, you know, Cubase or Bitwig or Logic. Be honest with you, I don't have those software. I don't. I could probably get a trial for you know, Cubase and Bitwig. I don't know about Logic. I know Bitwig has got a scripting interface. I've seen that. All right. I think Cubase redid theirs in version 13. I've used Bitwig before. It's all right. It's kind of a, you know, Ableton knockoff with a little bit more of a modular synth type of feel. I've used Cubase before. You know, I used to use Cubase way back in the day, Cubase SX. You know, I'm familiar with it. And if they have a scripting interface, I'm positive I can work with it. But I need some help getting that software. I'm not just going to buy software that I don't use just to make some stuff work. It's not really a business plan motivating behind this. This is just me tinkering around and releasing this stuff so everybody else can benefit. But if you support me, go and grab a script, go subscribe to the Patreon, go down, you know, and go to my support page or buy me a coffee page, send me a few dollars. I don't mind getting that software, these controls, and making this stuff work. I'll do it. I keep saying that. People don't take me at my word, but you know, let's try it out. Let's see what we can do. So go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.